Over the course of 10 episodes, we trace the history of prohibition in North America from the 1600s to the present.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
In the 16, 17, and 1800s, cannabis used for ropes, sails, and textiles was grown across North America. The 1893 Indian Hemp Drug Commission found moderate use of hemp drugs is attended by no evil results at all. Canada's Opium and Narcotic Act banned marijuana, even though the word cannabis never appears in the bill. It was written in by hand before the final vote by an unknown person who was never identified. The U.S. Army found no medical evidence that cannabis causes insanity in soldiers working in the Panama Canal Zone. Despite opposition from the American Medical Association, Harry Anslinger got the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act signed into law.
And I'm calling Bellevue because you're nuts!
But the presiding psychiatrist at Bellevue Hospital said marijuana lacks the addictive qualities of opium and other drugs. A 5-year study by the New York Academy of Medicine concluded marijuana doesn't lead to addiction, doesn't lead to harder drug use, and doesn't cause juvenile crime or delinquency. Anslinger responded by announcing that anyone who carries out marijuana research without Bureau of Narcotics approval would be arrested and tried on federal charges.
Our situation has not improved.
Popular Mechanics detailed 25,000 items that can be made from hemp and declared cannabis the new billion-dollar crop.
Show me the money!
Cannabis and hemp cultivation were banned. Instead of 25,000 hemp-related products, there would be 0. Petroleum, timber, chemical, and pharmaceutical companies were thrilled. Swingers, squares, and beats.
You're a slacker.
The 1,100-page Schaefer Commission report shattered everything the government claimed about marijuana since the 1930s. It completely destroyed Harry Anslinger's gateway theory, stated marijuana does not constitute a major threat to public health, and concluded that marijuana should be decriminalized. President Nixon,
I'm not a crook.
he created the DEA.
Limitless power!
The Ledane Commission concluded cannabis use does not cause violent crime, and prohibition wastes police time, clogs the justice system, provides funds for organized crime, and creates a subculture with a
complete lack of respect for the law.
They recommended removing criminal penalties, saying the law on the books is at extreme variance with the facts. The Canadian Medical Association declared cannabis is not a narcotic. Health Canada called for decriminalization. No changes were made to the law. The war on drugs.
Okay, he's on fire. He's on fire. He's on fire. He burned up. He's down. He's down.
I was asked by a group of children what to do if they were offered drugs. And I answered, just say no. Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
Whatever they're selling, I don't want it.
Prime Minister Mulroney banned all literature about and advocacy for cannabis. No exemption was made for scientific, political, or journalistic writing. A DEA judge declared marijuana one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man and called its Schedule I classification unreasonable, arbitrary, and capricious. The Bush administration rejected his report on Saturday of a holiday weekend. Prime Minister Chrétien passed a law that would make Joe Stalin green with envy.
Joe Stalin.
You might want to try Joseph.
I think you'd remember that.
Oh, yes!
The Controlled Drugs and Substances Act allowed police to search property without a warrant, confiscate property without a conviction, and eliminated jury trials for cannabis trafficking cases. Conservative Senator Pierre-Claude Nolan's 5-volume report concluded,
almost a century ago, the enactment of prohibition laws was made possible through public misinformation.
It went on to say the scientific evidence overwhelmingly indicates cannabis is substantially less harmful than alcohol and should not be treated as a criminal issue. The response of the Liberal government was typical.
I am not listening to you.
Canada's Supreme Court declared cannabis basically harmless and said prison sentences for possession constituted a demonstrably unfit sentence. The government cut off funding for the federal medical marijuana research program.
This is nuts.
The Colorado Green Rush happened, and Dr. Sanjay Gupta reversed.
I've apologized for some of the earlier reporting because I think, we've been terribly and systematically misled in this country for some time, and I did part of that misleading.
A bill to legalize cannabis by July 1st, 2018 was finally introduced. Vladimir Lenin said a lie told often enough becomes truth. By the early 2000s, lies about marijuana's effects had been told for nearly 100 years. It's no wonder our leaders continue to believe them. They either haven't seen the latest research, or if they have, it seems they deliberately bury it because of their preconceived ideas or their political agendas. As Chuck Missler says, the only sure barrier to truth is assuming you already have it. Edmund Spencer put it this way: there is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all argument, and which cannot fail to keep man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is condemnation before investigation.